Where were you born?
Sicily, Italy.
And when were you born?
2725.
All right. Tell me about your parents and siblings.
Well, my parents were both born in Italy, and they came to the United States in 1890, something like that. My father did anyway. My mother came later, and we had another sister and brother. There were three of us. We were born and raised in Lower East Side, New York City.
And why did your parents come to the United States?
Oh, I guess the new country. Yeah, for whatever reason, they want to get out of Italy, start a new life,
Mm-hmm. And what were your parents' jobs?
My father was a longshoreman, working on the docks.
And what high school did you attend?
I didn't go to high school, Gramercy School, PS 20 on Rivington Street, Manhattan.
Were you a good student?
What?
Were you a good student?
No.
Did you enjoy your youth?
What?
What about your youth did you enjoy?
Well, not much because we had no money to do anything. Things were hard at that time. Now you're talking about in the 20s, up into the lower 30s. We just had enough to eat. We had no living condition like you have now. We had an ice box. We had to get ice every 3 or 4 days. Have it delivered for 15 cents. I remember that. We had our heat was by a kerosene lamp, and we used to shut it at night to save money. And the rent was real cheap. A dollar was a dollar then. Salaries are very small. My father didn't make too much money. That's about it.
And what was the name of your brother and your sister?
My sister's name was Jenny, and my brother was Vito.
All right. So, were you drafted or did you enlist?
Pardon?
Were you drafted or did
I
you
was
enlist?
drafted, yeah.
How old were you when you joined?
When I got drafted?
Yeah.
18.
Had you ever thought about serving for the military before you were drafted?
No, because my brother was drafted before I did.
How did you feel about entering the military? Were you afraid, proud, or perhaps excited?
I don't know. I had no feeling, I guess. Just to get away from the Lower East Side.
Where did you receive your basic training?
Georgia.
And tell me about that experience.
Well, we spent almost a year in training. Then I went to England, waiting for orders.
So, when you're in basic training, what job were you trained for?
Oh, on a half track with a 50 caliber machine guns on a turret, like a plane.
Mm-hmm.
We trained on that. Later on, we got different half track with two 50s on each side and a 37 millimeter in the middle. And we went overseas with that. I was the gunner.
So did you request a specific job, or is that the job they gave you?
That's the job they gave me.
Before entering the military, did you have any specialized skills or training that helped you get that job?
No.
Did you make any close friends during basic training?
Yeah.
You want to tell me about some of them?
Well, I trained with a friend of mine. We got to be friends in the Army, Frank Mazza. And we got to be like brothers all through the war. When we came home, he was my best man, and I was his best man when he got married too. And he passed away, oh, a good 10 years ago, maybe. Although we lost track of each other for 10 years. That's a story I don't want to mention.
So where was the first place you toured, or where was the first place you went to after basic training?
Went to England. Oh, I can't think of the name unless I see it on a map. Stoke-on-Trent, the name of the section in England.
And how long were you there for?
Well, until we got orders to go to France, right after the invasion, the Normandy invasion. I remember one town that I remember when we first hit the activities. Can't think of the name. It was about 15 miles inland into France. If I see it on the map, I would know. Yeah.
All right. So when you started first, going to France and England, I want to know a little bit more about the conditions. So, how was the food?
It wasn't bad in England, but once we went over to France, we had rations like can or Kmart, K stuff, whatever they called it,
So were you hungry a lot, or were you always just?
Well, we had plenty of rationing. What do they call it? I forgot what they
MREs?
Call it. Huh?
MREs? MREs?
What's that?
No, well, I'm missing a different ration. That's all right. You don't need to remember the name. So were there any rules? When you were, when you went to England and France, when you were at the camps, were there any specific rules?
Not that I know of.
All right. What did you do with your free time?
We had no free time.
What kind of uniforms were issued to you?
Well, normal army stuff.
What dwellings were provided? So, what was your shelter?
Shelter?
Yeah, what was it like? A tent? I mean, what was it like?
No, on a. It wasn't a bed, that's for sure. Then once we went into France, very little sleep. Sitting up, sitting on a high steel chair on a hip track. Very little sleep. Always on the go with the Third Army, General Patton.
So, you first landed in England, but the first place you arrived in a war zone was France, correct?
Yeah.
All right. So, what was your experience in France? If you can kind of just walk me through when you got there to right about when you left France. As much as you can.
Well, I don't remember much of it. All right.
You got it.
Well, we were night and day traveling inland with General Patton, always on the go. Very little rest. Sleeping on metal seat for one blanket. I'm not sure if I hit 2 winters. I know winters were cold. We froze. A couple of times we stopped at a farmhouse. I slept in a barn. I don't ever remember sleeping on a bed throughout the whole war at that time. We used to anything what we did was spraying into the woods. Not much in France, but in Germany we did a lot of that. I was involved in Bastogne. I don't remember what we did there. Then we continued on Luxembourg. We had a rest there.
All right, so right now we're kind of just trying to get a feel for what you did in France. So pretty much, in general, in France, you were a general Patton, and you went in the woods a lot. I mean, was there any particular firefighting or any battles that really jumped out at you that you can remember, or was it mostly just kind of sleeping through the woods?
We did a lot of spraying with our 50 caliber gun. That's about it. Not in France though, mostly in Germany.
All right, so so after you were done in France, what did you do? Where was the next place you went after France?
I'm not sure if it's Luxembourg or Bastogne.
All right, well let's just what did you do? Do you remember what you did in Luxembourg?
We had a rest there a week. I think it was a week. We had a rest there.
All right, and then where did you go after Luxembourg?
Well, I remember going into Bastogne. A little skirmish there. I don't remember what we did. Then we continue on. Once we broke through, we continue on into Germany. Always on a go, night and day, no sleep. I think I was in Europe 16 months. It was over a year. I don't remember much. All we did was continue go on a highway, on a road. We ran out of ammunition, we ran out of gas, and we just parked there on the highway waiting for supplies. Winded up in Germany. I think we were in Austria for a couple of days. But most of the time, we after the war, we stayed at the Bavarian Mountains in Germany. That was after the war. Waiting to go to Japan until we found out that the war ended there. They dropped the bomb, and then we were ready to go home.
All right. So, did you ever see the enemy? Meaning, did you ever see any Germans?
Oh yeah, we see Germany, not close by, at a distance.
You could see German soldiers in the distance at times.
Yeah.
All right. What was your most interesting experience? So anything really interesting ever popped up?
What?
Like, what's your most interesting experience?
I don't know. I guess the whole time we were in Europe was an experience.
All right. Yeah, you tell me about your commanding officers.
Well, the only time we seen them was when we had a rest. And we had a hot meal. Other than that, night and day we're on the move.
Have you ever contacted any of your friends since you were discharged?
Yeah, and this after discharge, yeah, Frank Mazza, we became like brothers.
All right. So just kind of want to go back here. So after Luxembourg and Bastogne, you said you went to Germany.
Yeah.
All right, and then how long? Do you remember how long you were in Germany for?
I don't know. I don't remember how long it was.
But mostly your job in Germany. Like, what was your main job once you got to Germany?
Well, after the war, we were guarding German prisoners, guarding the headquarters. So they didn't quiet down. That's about all.
So once you got to Germany, Germany had already surrendered at that point? Once you got to Germany, Germany had already surrendered?
Well, once we were all the way in, they surrendered. Yeah.
All right. How did you travel? I mean, when you traveled, did you do walking? I mean,
No, on the half track, always on the half track.
and how did you find out when the war was finally over?
Find out what?
How did you find out when the war was over?
Right after Germany surrendered.
So how did you find out? Was it a newspaper?
No, word of mouth, I guess.
What was your homecoming like? Meaning, like, when you got back to the United States, was there any kind of, what was the atmosphere?
We're happy, I guess. After the war, we were guarding the headquarters. It was General Patton's headquarters there. And I was on guard duty away from the headquarters, sitting in a foxhole. I think it was right after the war, whatever. And who comes by with a horse, a white horse, General Patton, with his pistol. He came out and said hello to me. That was the greatest thrill I ever had throughout the war.
What did he say to you?
He said something, I forgot what it was. I don't know. I just stood at attention, froze, And that was it. Going through the other side, I forgot where it was at one time of the year of the invasion there, whatever. We stopped, and they were looking down a mountain, way down. There was looked like a concentration camp with a fence about 15, 20 feet high, and we popped over where there was an oven, like where you bake bread. The only thing there was wall with I forgot it was 3 or 4 ovens with a steel door. I got off and I took pictures of it, and there was a lot of clothes on the ground on the left side. I walked around into the back. All I seen was ashes. I don't know, at that time I don't know what it was, what it was used for, Until later on, after the war, I found out that they had the concentration camps and they were killing Jews, I assume it was Jews. throw them through the oven. I don't know. I took pictures of it. I sent it in and I never got them back. That was it. As we went through, I forgot what day it was or what part of the year it was, going through, and we happened to find out, we found that Hitler had a meeting room up in the mountains with a big bay window. And I went over there, I looked around, and the bay windows were real glass, looking all through the mountains, all the mountains, and everything was beautiful, nice. He had a good place to meet. Okay, that was ended now. Well, as we had gone through, I believe with Germany, and we were due for a rest, so we parked at a castle as we were penetrating into Germany to rest inside the castle, or the place to sleep. We slept on the floor. But when I got into it, I went upstairs, and over by the window, I picked up this 8mm rifle with a telescope and a head trigger. I assume it was a sniper that had it and ran off, you know. And I mailed it home anyway. I had time to mail it home. And that was it, that bell. And we lived in the same area in the Lower East Side. We sort of grew up together in the same block.
So you met her before?
I knew her, and she used to write to me. And when I got home, we used to go out on dates, you know. And later on, while I was working in construction, I made a few dollars, and we got married. We stayed there, Lower East Side, for a year till my daughter was born. Then we found out we had to get out of there, and we moved to Staten Island.
Why did you have to leave? Why did you have to leave?
We just moved to Staten Island, better country style, you know.
And so during the war, did you guys write to each other?
Yeah.
Can you remember anything that you wrote to her or she wrote to you?
No, just, you know, normal writing. I don't know.
Do you remember how you proposed?
Well, when I started working on construction and we were going and keeping company, I don't remember we were proposing. I asked her to let's get married, and that was it. And we had a wedding, nice wedding. We rented a hall, we had a big party. And that was it. What can I say? You know, it's a dreary rush story. Really nothing interesting, you know, normal. That's about it.
All right. Can you tell me a little bit about, you know, raising your family, and then when you were in New York, you're raising, you know, Jane, Paul, Anthony, and
yeah, well,
you know, if you can kind of start from when they were born and kind of just go up from there.
Rosemary was born while we're living in the Lower East Side. Then the area started getting too crowded. We moved to Staten Island. Then Anthony was born there. We lived in a city project. And I think Roe was born there too, in Staten Island. Later on, we bought a house nearby there, and Paulie was born. So we had 2 girls and 2 boys. And that was the life we led.
And was it rough? You know, was it hard raising 4 kids?
In a way, yes. In a way, yes. Well, we got along. My wife was working too, and I was working.
And what was she doing?
She worked for the newspaper company, taking advertisements, I believe.
Do you remember what
At
it
the
was
one on
called?
Staten Island newspaper.
Right. And what about once all the kids started getting to college? You know, so what did you do after kids started going to college and moving off? Did you?
Oh, well, Anthony went to college, and he was a football player in college, and he got a, what do you call
Scholarship?
scholarship to college, from school to college, and he got picked up after he graduated. He got picked up by Dallas Cowboy as a football player. Then after that, at that time they had the World Series Football League, which folded, and Dallas rehired all the ones that were Football League, and they dropped him and he went to Canada playing football. And that was it. And he quit.
All right. What about Jane? Can you tell me about Jane? Kind of.
Well, Jane used to work for the newspaper company in Staten Island.
No,
Staten Island Advance.
Jane. My mom, Jane.
Oh.
Want to take a break?
Oh. We sent all the kids to parochial school. And Rosemary become a RN. Anthony got us up a job. I forgot what. And little Paulie, he was small at that time. BJ was going to medical school too, to become a doctor. And when we moved down here, we let the house go cheap to Anthony, and BJ stayed there a couple of years while she's going to medical school. She finally graduated because she went on her own. And we took Paulie, who was 12 with him. We moved to Florida for better, cheaper. We assumed it was cheaper at that time, but not now. That's about it. There's nothing else.
All right. I mean, can you tell me a little bit about BJ when she was growing up? What she was like.
Well, for the last 2 years, she lived with her brother. Yeah, because she was going to medical school. But still, before that, she was a normal girl. And the mother took care of all of them like a hawk. She kept an eye on all of them good. Me too, I guess. If we drove them to a party, we drove them there, and we picked them up again. And at that time, they weren't keeping any company. That was it. No more. Finished. Well, right after I got discharged from the Army, when I worked in construction off and on, when a job is finished, you're off a week or two out of work, and we just happened to know, I don't know if we were related to the man. He was a mafia guy, and he asked me if I want to work, make illegal alcohol. I said, yeah. So I was working nights and day, and one place was in Brooklyn that got raided. I didn't get caught. Another place was in the Bronx. I didn't get caught. And I was the cook. I was making illegal alcohol. in 500-gallon drums. You know, that's how I was getting $200 a week. And then while I was working, I was saving the money. I was living a little high. I used to rent out cars. So I couldn't afford a car, which later on I did buy one. And Rosemary was born at that time. I quit the business and I turned honest. That was it.
Tell him how you almost got caught.
Huh?
Tell him how you almost got caught.
Hey, I almost got caught in the raid. I hid. I think it was in a cellar somewhere until they all went out. All the officers was there. I don't know. I guess they were city cops or. Well, the only thing is illegal was you was beating them out of tax money. It's illegal to make alcohol because they were losing money on tax. That was about it. It wasn't really a criminal, you know, in a way. You wasn't killing anybody. Then after a while, when I quit, I should deliver alcohol to certain people. Put it 5-gallon tins in a car, deliver it to people, and then I quit. That was it.